All right, so we're going to be talking about QR Code Monkey and what beginners need to know. It is a website that generates QR codes. So a quick presentation overview of what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to discuss what a QR code is. We're going to talk about some of the history behind QR codes. We'll discuss parts of the QR code as well as different uses for a QR code, both inside and outside of the classroom. We'll discuss some of the files that can be supported through the website of QR Code Monkey, as well as navigating the website, and then you'll be able to create your own QR code by the end of this. Some learning outcomes that I'm hoping that we achieve are that we become familiar with QR codes and their features. I'm hoping that you're able to brainstorm some ideas to incorporate QR codes to fit your needs in your classroom. I'm hoping that by the end of this, you're able to create your own QR code for whatever personal or professional need you have. And I'm hoping that it encourages you to use EdTech tools in the future as well. So before we get into the meat of it, I want to introduce myself. My name is Tessa Talsma. I am a digital learning coach here at Region 9. Before I became a digital learning coach, I was an educator for over 6 years. I've used QR codes both with elementary students and middle school students. When I did it with middle school students, they absolutely loved it. They loved the extra step of not having to type in the whole long URL, or if they accidentally typing something wrong, starting over. And I found that to be useful for my elementary students as well, because again, they were in 3rd grade and they kind of had a hard time just typing their name right sometimes. And so being able to just scan something and not type out a whole bunch of random letters and numbers was really useful for them. So it kind of works for people of all ages. So what is a QR code? QR stands for quick response. So it's a quick response code. And at the bottom of the screen, you can kind of see a square, and you'll see that it consists of a lot of small dots and kind of pixel-like shapes. So what a quick response or QR code does is it's a scannable image that can be read typically using a smartphone camera. Again, computers and things like that can be used as well. Sometimes you need an extension or an app, but that's not always the case. And so once you scan the image, it basically scans all of the squares and dots, and all of those squares and dots represents different bits of information, I should say. And all of that gets translated into something that humans can process. So all of this digital information in this, this little square right here, this QR code, is scanned and then processed into something that we're able to read on our own, which is pretty neat. So some QR code history. QR codes were created in 1994 in Japan. And so they're initially used for car manufacturing. It was used to scan parts in manufacturing for vehicles. And the reason for this is that it made it a little bit faster and easier to track these things. So Hara's team was responsible for creating something that was not like a regular barcode, because barcodes did exist at this time in 1994, obviously. It wasn't, I want to say it wasn't that long ago, but I guess it was. It's over 20 years ago. But barcodes already existed. They just needed something that was a little more efficient that could process information a little differently. And that's what Hara's team was able to create. And recently, the inventor of the QR code had made a statement that he thought that they'd be very useful in ways other than just manufacturing. However, he didn't feel that they'd be used by people day to day, like for payments and things like that. So that was very exciting for him to something that he created became that big of a deal. As for how they're used now, they're used in multitudes of different ways. You can use it, like I said, as a form of payment, a way to view information at different locations, a way to get information to your students. Basically, any way that you can think of using it, you could probably utilize it in an effective way. So in just everyday, day-to-day life, ways that you might see QR codes used would be to access specific information. So maybe if you're in a restaurant, it might be a link to their drink menu or their dessert menu. Maybe if you are at the bowling alley and you're scanning it, it tells you how you can choose the music to play. I don't know. There's lots of different ways that QR codes are used. It might be used to share links to websites. I know that my personal business card has a little QR code and it takes you to where you can sign up for an appointment with me. So it just depends on the purpose for it. And again, as I've said multiple times, and as the creator of QR codes has mentioned, it's incredible that we can make payments without actually using a debit card, credit card, check, cash, anything. You just use your phone. In the classroom, there are also so many ways that you can use QR codes. If we are reflecting on it and being honest with ourselves, basically anything that requires the internet, you could probably tie a QR code to. What I like to use QR codes for in the classroom was learning centers. So if I was in small group with students or something like that, and I had another group of students on computers, again, they can just scan the QR code. It gets them directly to whatever it is that the assignment that I want them working on, rather than worrying, oh, what if they mistype it? What if it's not working? What if they know that they can just scan it and go? Which was really awesome in centers because it helped maintain students and keeping them on track. And it used the time in each center very effectively. Something else you could use the QR codes for in the classroom would be to check and reflect answers. So it could be centers, it could just be group work, whatever works for you. You can have students in a scavenger hunt and maybe they're checking their answers as they go, right? So they can scan the QR code, it'll check the answers, that sort of thing, saves everyone a little bit of time. Another way that I have listed on here that you could use a QR code in your classroom would be to differentiate your lesson. Maybe sometimes differentiation can be difficult in the sense that you don't want all the students to know that different students need different accommodations, whatever the case may be. So if everyone is trying to scan a QR code, you're not going to know the difference between one QR code and the other because they're going to look almost identical and they might go to slightly different parts of a website, slightly different assignments. It just helps with differentiation. So how do barcodes work? Or I'm sorry, QR codes work. They work essentially like a barcode. When you scan it, the very unique pattern translates in the data that we can understand. Often if you go out to eat or anywhere you go, if you look around, there are so many barcodes. Sometimes it's on your drink cup. Sometimes it's just on stickers plastered everywhere. They're everywhere. When you scan it, what happens with you scan it on your camera, it pops up like a little link. And when you click the link, it sends you to wherever it needs to go within seconds. So it's very quick. It's kind of just like a natural evolution of UPC barcodes. So I need to make sure that I made sure to share my volume and sound with you. So give me 1 second. Nope, I did not. So let me get back to that. There we go. All right. So I have a quick little video. It kind of recaps what we were talking about, and it just talks about QR codes.
It's likely you've seen much more of QR codes in the last 12 months than ever before, thanks to the 20...
Oh no, what have I done? Sorry, struggle button. I'm so sorry. Were you all able to hear my volume whenever I shared? Okay.
I was.
Okay, I just couldn't see you all, and so I was like, I can't see anybody. So I just want to make sure before I go back to doing that. Okay.
It's likely you've seen much more of QR codes in the last 12 months than ever before. Thanks to the 2020 pandemic, restaurants are keen not to share physical menus, shops would like you to join their virtual queue, and some places like gyms and libraries would like to be able to contact you in case of an outbreak. But how do QR codes actually work? And how have they managed to virtualize the physical world around us? Here's how it happened. The solution to all of these very modern problems is of course a QR code, a type of 2D barcode first invented in Japan in 1994. The design was modelled on the coloured pieces from Go, a board game even more popular than chess across much of Asia. Traditional barcodes were already in existence, but the amount of data they could store was limited, given they were scanned horizontally only. Manufacturing plants, specifically car factories, needed a technology that could carry much more information and be read significantly quicker than existing methods. Components company Denso devised the first QR code, short for quick response, as it was able to scan various car components at high speeds, enabling them to be sorted, stored, or combined much more efficiently. By the early 2000s, use of the codes had become widespread across most of Japan, especially in logistics for processes like shipping and handling, but also in everyday life, like at airports and on street posters. The novelty of the new shape and the rise of phones with built-in cameras was a match made in heaven, and so the technophiles of Japan consumed QR codes in their millions. By this point, the established design for codes was a trio of black squares, one each in the upper left, upper right, and lower left corners, which enabled scanning devices to detect their presence immediately. Their design was soon approved by the International Organization for Standardization, and so following the turn of the millennium, we began to see them more in the Western world too. In most everyday cases, QR codes are simply a replacement for a web address, saving the user from typing out a lengthy URL, and allowing them to simply scan a small barcode with their smartphone. In the last few years, Android and Apple phones have integrated QR code readers into their camera apps, notifying the user when a code is scanned and detected, then bringing them to the desired web page. QR codes also come with error correction built into their design, meaning they can often still find you the correct redirection even when the code is damaged or dirty. Buses, business cards, and magazines are just a few of the places you can find QR codes today, as their use becomes increasingly common in advertising. Countries like Russia and Ghana have even featured QR codes on their currency, normally to commemorate historical events, linking to a website with further details. The codes have won several awards for design and innovation down the years, but admittedly the technology isn't perfect. QR codes have become tools for hackers, as they can replicate a well-known website and trick targets into disclosing their personal information. Their reliance on a strong internet connection has also been criticised, particularly for tourists and those in rural locations. Comment below with the weirdest or most unexpected.
Okay. So, like all technology, it's not perfect. However, for the most part, it does what you need it to, especially if you have internet connection. So we're going to talk about the different parts of a QR code. There are 7 parts total that we're going to kind of discuss. And the reason I want to talk about the parts of a QR code is because I like that it kind of helped me understand how they work once I knew each part and the function of each part, if that makes sense. Because I understand that you scan it and it sends you to a website or whatever it's trying to send you. However, once I knew the parts and like their function, it made it kind of make sense to me. So the first thing I want to talk about is the logo, which is in the center of a QR code. So if you look at my screen, the logo on this one is kind of looks a little bit floral almost. And so QR codes with a logo allows your logo or brand to be recognized instantly. Earlier in the slideshow, you might have seen the Region 9 logo on my example QR codes. And so those QR codes will send you exactly where that little logo said, Region 9. So if you have a recognizable logo or something that you want to promote in that sense, that's a perfect place for it. When we talk about the data module, that is basically tiny little, what looks like I described as pixels earlier. And so it's a standard unit of a QR code. It's typically just like a little black square set against a white background. Though the colors and the contrast can be different because you can change all of that, and you're going to see that in our presentation. Black on white is the most optimal whenever you're creating your own QR code because it's the easiest to read. The arrangement of the black squares or data modules is what makes up the majority of a QR code, as you can see, because most of this is just a bunch of little pixel looking black squares. And then the last thing is the background, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's just the background of your QR code. Typically, a white one does work best because you want a big contrast. However, it's up to you to decide because you can create it where you put an image behind it. There's a lot that you can do. Something else that I want to talk about are the position markers and the quiet zones of a QR code. So the position markers there's 3 of them. They kind of are in each corner. That helps position whenever it's scanning. That way it scans it correctly and doesn't misscan. They help kind of guide the scanning. And so they consist of an inner and outer eye, which we'll discuss very briefly. And then it helps just get you to where you need to go. The quiet zone is outside of all of your data modules, but within the QR code still. It's a blank area on all of the sides. It allows the scanners to be able to properly just read the code. So having that buffer space kind of allows for less error. Like I said, we're going to be talking about the inner and outer eye. These are part of the positioning. And again, it just helps keep you. So all of these things just kind of help make sure it's scanned correctly and it gets you to the correct location. Like the video had said that sometimes people who have bad intentions, maybe hackers, they can modify QR codes kind of easily because it is just a bunch of little black squares. And so having all of these things that make sure that it's scanned correctly also prevent that from happening as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about all of these file types that are supported through QR Code Monkey. And so those of you that are a little more digitally savvy than others, this will mean a lot to you. For those of you that are like, I'm just trying to create a QR code that works for day-to-day life, this may not mean a whole lot, but we're going to still talk about it. There's a ton of different file types and there's different reasons to use them. If you're using an SVG, which you see in the corner, these are stored using mathematical formulas and help supports like transparency in images or files. And then right underneath it, you're going to see an EPS. And this is a vector file that requires professional and high quality image printing. So this isn't probably what you want to use if you're printing something. You're probably going to use like a PDF or a PNG if you're printing. Speaking of PNG, it's used on websites to display high quality digital images, and it allows you to compress without lossless compression, and then it allows a broader color scheme. So PNGs allow much more like colorful documents to be within the file. A PDF is a versatile way to present and send documents regardless of the system opening it. So it's the most universal way to use file types. And then MP3 is typically used for sound. I know that growing up, we had things like that were called MP3 players that I guess our phones do now, but it was a way that we stored music. So let's go ahead and jump to the website and kind of start navigating and see what this website has to offer. So it is qrcode-monkey.com. And once you pull it up, it looks like this. So out to the side, you'll notice that there's multiple buttons. These are all different ways that you can share whatever you create. So I'm not going to really touch these right now because I haven't created anything, but these are different ways that you can share it. Also at the top, you can read a little bit about different ways that you can use this website. It just kind of scrolls you to the bottom. It has an app. I haven't bothered with it, to be honest. And the reason for it is because what's really cool about QR Code Monkey is that you don't necessarily have to make, you don't have to make an account. You can create your QR code, you can download it, you can save it. You don't have to create an account at any point, which I really love because I get frustrated when I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this really quick. And then it turns into 10 minutes because I can't remember my password. I didn't save it on my computer, whatever the case may be. This website's really cool because you don't have to worry about any of that happening because you don't have to sign in to use it. It also has 14 different languages, or I'm sorry, not 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different languages. I thought it was 14. I'm thinking of my last presentation. It has 9 different languages that it can be used in if necessary. I'm not going to change the language just because I don't have the ability to use this in a different one. So looking at the actual website, you have the option of so many different ways or different bits of information that you could put in here. It could be text, it could be email, phone, all of these things. The location one is really neat. I noticed that if I'm being honest, if you type in like a specific location, sometimes it does not work. Like if I was going to type in Ruidoso, New Mexico, it doesn't necessarily work. However, if you like dragged and dropped over to find it, it would work. And then it'd pull it up and then you can apply it to the QR code, which I'll show you in a moment. Those of you that use a lot of social media, you have your social media sources that you could create QR codes for. If you're sharing some sort of Wi-Fi password, an event, those of you that use Bitcoin, like there's so many things that you can do. And then there's even more out to the side. So depending on your need, you're able to do quite a bit with this. I'm just going to stick with the very basic of let's just start with, I have a URL. I want to create a QR code that will get my students or people to where they need to go. So I'm going to go back to URL. And then right here, it's asking your URL. I'm going to use Region 9's website's URL just because that's where I work and I think their website's real fun. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And then right here, instead of it being QR code monkey, because when people scan this, I don't want them to come back to this website. If I was trying to promote QR codes, then absolutely, I would leave that. But I'm going to change this and I'm going to change it to whatever website it is that I'm trying to get my users to go to. After you do that, you can, if that's all you need to do, like if you're not worried about colors, if you don't want to add a logo or anything, if you don't want to customize the design, you can just simply click create QR code. It'll create it. If you scan it, if you want to check it beforehand, that's fine. Then you can go ahead and download. It'll bring up this pop-up of a QR code generator pro that it's like kind of promoting for you to sign up for. You'll still get your QR code if you don't sign up for that. You're just waiting because notice that it's an ad. So again, you don't have to sign up for anything. You don't have to pay for anything. It'll download it out on its own. So it tells me that it's done generating and it's downloading my QR code. It's already downloaded as you can see on my screen. So then when I pop it up, it's in my downloads. However, we can be more creative than that. So let's go ahead and go back and we're gonna check out what we can actually do with this. So I'm still going to keep this website. However, I do want to set the colors. So foreground color, you can choose a single color. You can do a color gradient and you can also customize your eye color. Remember the eyes are these over here, the 3 things that kind of hold it in its position. When you click on the color, it gives you, oh, I didn't want to do that, I'm sorry. When you click on the color, it gives you the option to kind of move this little circle wherever you want, depending where you move it. The side range changes. You can specify it to whatever color you'd really like. If you want it darker or lighter, most of you know how, or hopefully you've used something like this at some point. So I'm going to use a bright green. Then maybe I want to use a color gradient. So maybe I don't want it all bright green because I can test it out and see it's a green QR code, right? So maybe I want to try color gradient because I want it to grab my students' attention. So I'm going to do green and I'd like to change it to maybe let's do purple, right? Green and purple. So let's say that I'm content with that and I'm good with a linear gradient rather than a radial, your choice. And now you can see it kind of starts with the green because that's my first color, then it gradually gets into purple. If I wanted to see the radial, I could test that out. And notice that you can preview basically by pressing create QR code every time. So if you're like, I don't know if I'm going to like that, just press create QR code and it'll test it out for you. it won't download it until you click download. So you can test it as much as you'd like until you're happy with it. So also something to notice is that if it's too big of a contrast between your colors. So let's say that I wanted to do, it's going to tell you that they recommend you to make your color darker. It'll still let you do what you want to do. So if I'm being stubborn, I'm like, no, I like this. It'll let me, but it'll again give you warnings all over because it's really hard for a QR code reader or QR code to be read by readers if the contrast isn't strong enough or the colors aren't dark enough. So you just have to be careful with that. I'm sorry if the colors aren't dark enough, like your foreground and background colors, that contrast has to be pretty stark. Otherwise, it gets difficult for your phones and technology to read. Okay, so colors, super fun. If you want to customize your eye color, meaning each one of these, you can. So maybe I want those to be red. Again, it doesn't make any of the changes until you ask it to, or you click create QR code or download the image. So right now, that's what it looks like. Maybe I'm not super loving. Maybe I want to incorporate a little more blue. Okay, whatever the case may be. Or you can copy what you already have and it'll match it for you, which is kind of nice. Background color, you can choose, again, you want a strong contrast. So if your background is white, you probably want something a little more of a color towards the front. If your background is really dark, then you're probably going to want the lighter colors to be used for your QR code. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about adding a logo. Remember when we add a logo, it ends up in the center of our QR code. So I'm going to go ahead and just minimize that. It doesn't make anything change. It just closes that up so it's not, it kind of looks less messy. And then we're going to add our logo. So you can upload something or if you want to add something like this, you can. So I'm going to go to upload and let's say, what do I want my logo to be? Maybe I want it to be my Bitmoji. So I'm going to upload that. Oh, I just did. And then again, to test it, I'm going to press create. And now my Bitmoji is in the middle of my QR code. So if I wanted that to be my logo, that's totally fine. If you want it to be something more like that's business related, things like that, you can absolutely do that as long as it's a file on your computer. Because remember, if you go to upload, you have access to everything on your computer, not just your desktop. Right, and then at the bottom we have customized design. This part's really, really neat to me. I get a little carried away because I think it's fun to see the different ways that you can make your QR code look, even though they kind of all need to look very similar, if that makes sense. So you have the option to change the body shape. So what does that mean? So let's try, I'm going to choose just dots. So it kind of changes the modules that we were talking about earlier. So notice that all the dots in the background, all of the little data points changed. Maybe I want it to be a little more diamond-y. So you can be as unique as possible. Something that I did run into is when I use the more, I don't know the right word, the smaller images, like with the dots and the little tiny diamonds, my phone did struggle a little bit more to read them. So like if you used more of the thicker or stronger data points, data modules, it's going to be a little bit easier to scan. So just keep that in mind. So you can change your body shape to a degree. And then you can also do the iframe shape. Remember, the iframe is going to go around it. So maybe I want my iframe to turn into circles now. Okay, and I did change my body on that one too. So I have circles, I have my iframe shape different. If you don't like the circles, again, you can click around, play with whatever you like. And then the inside is your eyeball. How do you want the eyeball shape to look? You can choose any of these. So you can get pretty specific if you're particular on how you want your QR code to look, especially if you want it to look a little more unique. So again, if you are looking to upload anything like that, you can do that on the bottom. And then they also have some templates here that if you're like, I don't want to mess with all of that, that is way too much for me, You can just choose one of their templates and it's pretty quick. You are able to, if you do sign up for an account, you can do all of these things. I haven't had any need to scan statistics or anything like that for my QR code, so I haven't bothered to see the further steps of this. This is just the basics of creating one that would work for you. So again, whenever you're done with it and you've created it, you're happy with what it looks like, you can download it. This ad is going to pop up as it's downloading. Once it's downloaded, it'll stop telling you don't refresh the screen. There we go. It's downloaded, and now I have a new QR code that's in my downloads. So let's see here. I think that's mostly everything that I have for the website. I know we're a little bit early on time, but does anyone have any questions or concerns for me?
No, I really enjoyed, I played with this a little bit. I've been adding them to the flyers. I created one that will take you to the R9 master calendar. So I kind of followed your lead and created one, and it was really simple and easy, and I loved playing with it. The only other thing that I could maybe layer in is what I've used for, because our brand has specific color codes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I found I use this other free website that will give me my specific RGB or R, whatever those color codes are, that had the number.
Yeah.
That you basically hover, go to this website, pull up your logo, and then hover over the color, and it'll give you the exact color code. And I just copy and paste those in. That way they're saved and they're housed, and they're I don't have to try to figure out how to match the logo or the website or whatever I'm working on.
That's
so that
incredible. I love that.
Yeah, that was really, really, that has been beneficial for me. And I'll send you the link to that, Tessa, because I think that you could, for other individuals that are going to get into it, you can be sharing that with other people as well, because that has been helpful for me in marketing a lot. I use it all the time.
That would be helpful, especially in presentations and things. I was like, this doesn't match exactly how I want it. So just being able to pull the exact color.
I do that with everything, and that way you don't have to fight through trying to match up everything. Yeah. So let me do that with you. But I want to make a QR code now.
Oh.
April, Lindsay, it's so much fun. And you guys could definitely use it in mentorship. I mean, create one that goes directly to your website, for your mentees and mentors to find their information. And you can do it for basically anything. So it's awesome.
It's super easy to use, very user-friendly. And I feel like it's like intuitive. Once you do it once, it's like, okay, I can do this.
I'm going to create one on the IT side, definitely, because everyone always wants our Wi-Fi password. And I hate giving out the Wi-Fi password. I hate it because I have to change it times a year.
There you go. And kids I mean, they just know how to use this. This is just a part of their lives. Well, and even if you made like a big poster on the wall and laminated it with a QR code, bam, people just take a picture of it.
So yeah, they'll be able to do it. It'll be.
Yeah, fun stuff. Let me, before I forget, and because I did mention it to the group, let me just chat in what I used. Okay. And it's pretty self-explanatory, but that's how I kind of get all of my colors to perfectly match. And I'm sure there's other ones that you can find online, but that's just the one that I've gone to and used. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you're welcome. So try that. I think you'll like that.
I love that Wi-Fi password idea. That's so smart, because they're always so difficult too, because you want them to be secure. And so that's just a quick, easy way to do that. That's great.
Yeah, I love that idea. Saves a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Tessa.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, it was super fun. Super fun. Maybe we should get a main account for Region 9 and see what those other pieces may be able to give us. I don't know. That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.
Okay.
That's okay.